All the non-monogamy skills apply in monogamy.
Yeah.
Monogamy skills do not all transfer to non-monogamy. That is sorry, but that is just true.
Yep.
We're going to be we can add a lot to your toolkit though that it's it will work no matter where you choose to go from here. And if you do decide to shift back to a closed container of monogamy, one of the skills I would hope everybody takes is, wow, we better be clear about what the heck that even is. Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place.
Let's talk about something that some people from the year of opening have brought to us, which is the topic of opening up too fast.
Yeah. Okay. So too fast. Too fast for who?
Right away, we need to define
and how
what
fast
does
is too fast
mean. Yeah.
I think that's a great topic. I mean, I see it from the inside because I'm working with people I'm teaching, and also I'm working with individuals in private work. I'm also talking to people inside research environments and inside private conversations, and I receive random emails.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of having opened too fast comes up for me a lot. And something that I notice is frequently in an established couple, one person will feel like it's too fast and the other might not. Often this has to do with a certain person's perception of how closely what is happening is aligning with their expectations.
Oh, sure, because expectations drive so much of, well, my dysregulation for sure. Like,
Well, sure.
I did not expect that. And all of a sudden I have to understand the new situation that I wasn't expecting.
Right. Foiled
Yeah.
expectations suck. Also, they're completely normal, right?
Yeah.
They happen. But the concept too of opening up too fast, I mean, I talk a lot about the metaphor of when we shift from monogamy to non-monogamy, it's often like jumping out of an airplane.
Right. Yeah.
And so we we go ahead and we take the leap. Maybe maybe you were percolating on the idea for a long time. Maybe one of you was and the other brought it to them. Maybe the stars aligned and an opportunity presented itself.
And there's a lot to learn in those situations of it's just a whole world of things that when you're ensconced in your monogamous relationship, they're just questions that don't come up. You don't need to worry about them. And then you find yourself out of the airplane, no parachute. And it occurs to you to ask questions that you didn't think to ask on the plane, like, do you have a parachute? Do I have a parachute?
Right. This did not occur
I
to me
didn't.
while I was in the plane. I didn't maybe even notice that I was in a plane that was taking off.
Right. Yep.
Right.
And so these are the ways that you might consider. I may have jumped out a little too fast.
I mean, this is how I did it.
I didn't check for my parachute first. Right. Yeah.
I jumped out of the airplane, threw a match behind me, tossed it into the airplane. I am not a living example of what to do. Because I didn't know what I wanted out of the experience.
Yeah.
I didn't know the basics of being a differentiated relator.
Right.
I didn't understand what questions to ask myself, let alone my partner or the new people that I wanted to relate with. And I didn't have some of the baseline skills that we talk about all the time. But still, once you've jumped out of the plane, a lot of stuff can happen. And for some people, they'll show up in in a call with me, or they'll pop into a Playing with Fire AMA. And, sometimes they're 18 months of like, well, we jumped.
Yep.
And I guess we're just doing this now. And sometimes it's 18 days and like, oh my God, what happened.
Right. And the metaphor of jumping out of the plane as the one-way trip, because once you have started having relationships with other people, you can't undo that fact for those other people.
Right, or for
Like,
yourself.
or for yourself.
This will
These it
always
Yeah.
have been an experience that you had. And
Yeah.
I hear people say frequently, like, I wish I could not know this.
Yeah.
And I think maybe this is something really important to talk about here on the podcast, because a lot of people who listen will I will never be in a private conversation with me. But we know that you're listening, and we know that some of you are listening from the perspective of like, I've been burned by this, and I want to do it, but also uh, I got hurt. And I know that some of you are also listening from the perspective of like, my partner wants to do this, and it is freaking me out just to even consider it. So what does it even mean to jump out of the plane? A lot of times
Right.
people assume that that means like opening a dating app, or having sex with someone else, or like,
What
but
is it for you?
but
Yeah.
jumping out of the airplane, for me, was telling my established partner that I had feelings for someone. And it wasn't the first time I'd done that. But when I told him that I had feelings for someone, by the way, that someone was you.
What? Me? Yeah.
Now, when
Yes.
I did, it it ruptured. It disrupted something.
Hmm.
And we've talked about this before, and I don't want to get super into that story, but it was actually just that moment of saying, "Hey, I have feelings for this person." And I didn't there was no action planned behind that. There was nothing. I didn't think you were available. I didn't know you were already in an open relationship.
Right.
I had no reason to think anything would happen. But still, I had introduced an element that dysregulated my then husband's nervous system, and
Yep.
honestly dysregulated mine too.
Sure.
I didn't have that language for it, but we couldn't go back to a time where that had never been said. We couldn't go back to a time where I wouldn't start wondering, wait, maybe there is a possibility here. We couldn't go back to a time when I'd never heard the words non-monogamy because a friend of mine had spoken them. I, we can't actually press the rewind button. And there's a state of innocence that we can't return to. And that immediately makes me think about Thomas More's book, Dark Arrows, and
Oh,
this
yes.
displaying
Yep.
of innocence. My experience was that I needed this disruption in my life. And I also kind of hate to say that, because that disruption didn't just disrupt my life. It
Hmm.
disrupted my kids' lives. It disrupted my friends' lives. It
Your
was
your
disruptive.
specific interconnection web was disrupted,
Right.
as and mine was in my ways. And the way that your your jumping out of the plane was very it was a point in
It was an
time. It was a
incident.
moment.
Yep. It was a moment.
And when I look back, and I'm sure I could characterize this of multiple different ways, but right now what I'm seeing is that it for me it was the moment that I committed to relating to you at a fundamental level versus at a like an acquaintance level. I was like, oh, I'm going to dive deeper. And and while it's possible that the people around me could have undone some of that because there wasn't a lot of talking from my side, I couldn't, because all of a sudden I learned things about both you and me that I
Yeah.
couldn't unknow. Like, I found out all kinds of stuff about myself.
And that's the specificity of you knowing me. You were
That's right.
already in a relationship that was not a closed container.
Nope. That's right.
But so that brings into the conversation the idea of a game changer relationship,
Hmm.
right? The idea of a game changer relationship, as I understand it, is, yep, even if we already have an open structure, it's been trundling along, it's been going in a certain way, it feels pretty stable. And then along comes a particular relationship that is like, this changes everything. And I don't think you recognized me as that. Like, I don't think you said those words out loud,
No, no, it's in retrospect that I
but,
can see it.
and I can see it too, how when we both were going through the process of our separate marriages into relating with each other at a new level, we were disrupting what was.
Yep.
And we can't return to the state of unknowing. We couldn't put those snakes back in the peanut brittle can.
Right.
It couldn't happen.
Yep.
And that to me was it was shocking. It was like my psyche, my soul wanted something from me. My conscious self was not entirely on board. Like I didn't know what I was doing, but I also couldn't seem to stop the energetic pull forward. And it was a pull, you were interesting to me, but it really wasn't about you. It was this
Right.
bigger question of like, whoa, my life it's not what I thought it was. And everything's so all the pieces are flown off the game board and everything's landing again and nothing's familiar. And there was a period of time where I longed for it to go back to the old familiar way. And when I hear people now talk about opening up too fast, I think, well, we can't return to what was, because this will always have happened. This knowing.
So when you say that, it occurs to me that if if I wanted to open up slowly enough that I could always unwind it if I needed to, there is no way to do that. Like you can't it I'm just thinking
Well,
about like this
so
went too fast because I don't know how to slow down because some of it is you're out of the plane now and
so is this about speed or is it about thresholds?
yeah. Okay, thank
Have
you.
I
That's
crossed a
what I mean. Yeah.
threshold that now that I've crossed it, it feels like something
Yep.
something's changed to a degree that I can't unsee it. I
And when
can't unknow it. But I do think that
Mhm.
pacing matter because I rushed the process. I rushed the process for reasons that they're too complex to get into and also too specific, I think. But I pushed and rushed really, really quickly and didn't allow myself to gain any of the skills necessary to do this.
Right.
That took actually years because I was bad at relationships. I was actively bad at intimate relationships. So to go from being bad at one romantic committed
Oh,
partnership to being bad
s-
at multiple,
same. Oh,
like
totally. Yeah.
I didn't magically get better
Yep.
at it.
Right.
And I went straight from monogamy into a triad like overnight essentially. It
Yeah.
was 45 days before we were living together. So
That was fast.
fast.
Yeah.
I would never recommend this to anyone, but
What
I
you said about pacing is really important because sure and okay, there's the threshold and you step through the threshold and all of a sudden you see things you can't unsee, you know things you can't unknow and it can be tempting to be like, okay, I have to gather all of this up and figure it all out right now. I have to figure out how sex works with multiple people if that's my thing. I have to figure out how to hinge among all of these relationships really well
and
all of right now. And I have to there's so
how to
many
be
things.
secure with someone who's also having feelings of attachment or interest in
Yup.
someone else and how
And
to
and all of these things and there's this sense that oh and I need to master it all now.
or the sense that I need to gather everything back up
Mhm.
and hold still and wait until I've got it.
Yeah.
And this is where I think there's a paradox, right? Because pacing does matter. I wish I had slowed down. It's not that I wish that I had preserved that relationship. I do think that that relationship coming to completion was the correct move, for me at least, and I believe for my ex, because he's quite happily married with someone who's a great match for him. But I don't like that I pushed so hard and I didn't allow myself to experience a level of pacing that could have potentially been gentler on my nervous system, but I was being presented with a reality that somehow, well, we'll put it all back the way it was. And
Mhm.
if he would talk about needing to get control of the situation. If I just get control of it and I know everything, then I'll feel better. But of course there is no perfect, like we did have to take actions.
Right.
Mistakes
Yeah.
were going to happen, repair needed to happen, we needed to learn how to repair, and these essential skills, sometimes we can slow our pace down so much that we aren't actually building any skills.
Mhm.
we're
Right.
we're just
You're staying, like,
holding
safe in the
still.
domains of, "I know how to do this, or at least I think I do, so I'm just gonna stay here and not push beyond it."
Right. And then sometimes I watch people who they try to hold really, really still until basically they can't contain themselves anymore. And there's an incident. And that
Mhm.
incident might wind up looking like betrayal. That incident might look like stepping beyond an agreement, or using a sort of quasi agreement, or the fact that there is no agreement to kind of fudge things a little bit and make some space for new
Mhm.
action. And all of this gets at, there is no perfect pace. There is no perfect, too fast, too slow, here's your Goldilocks amount.
Right.
But honestly, being with the fact that there are going to be times where we take a couple steps forward and we find out what works and doesn't work, and then we wind up thinking, oh, I need to go back, and maybe it's that idea that we can go back that we really need to sit with, because like you said, once new people are involved, well, those
Yeah.
those people they're real, and we can't negate the fact that those relationships start to exist, and they have their own um existential needs,
Yeah.
right? But also, we can't go back and pretend that what's here isn't here. What's happened has happened. So, how do we deal with the fact that my experience of exploring opening is going to be likely one of the most obvious ways that we'll be differentiating from each other?
Right.
We'll be really noticing where one of us um, needs, more communication and more transparency, and the other wants a lot more privacy and more sense of autonomy and decision making. We're going to start noticing where one person might want to have a lot of planning and clarity in their agreements, and another might be really counting on a lot of openness to just, like, let's just be with the experience and we'll let it float, and we'll repair things if they get messed up afterwards. Those lessons are so valuable,
They are,
but
and
they do hurt along the way. Like, to lose the sense of, we don't have to work on this very hard. We get to just kind of cruise.
which, um, in my experience was okay, I'm just speaking for myself, that was an illusion in my monogamous relationship. Like, "Oh, we don't have to work very hard at this. We got this." It turns out we were hurting each other in ways that we weren't talking about or acknowledging or even aware of.
So you were in a period of monogamy before I
And
showed up on the scene.
to be clear, it monogamy is it's stretching it a little bit because, as you mentioned,
Well,
we were open,
situational,
well, situationally monogamous. Yep.
right?
And
And the idea that there was this stability and
yeah,
this that not having to do much work, not having much that disrupted you, meant that you didn't need to have relationship check-ins,
right.
and
Yeah.
your agreements were all implicit, and your ability to regulate through just sort of waiting, a lot of use of time as the
Time as a
primary
we'll just wait till
ingredient,
this feeling goes away
and the willingness to also just let repair also just sort of happen over
through time.
time,
Yeah.
even if the bone heals pretty janky.
Yeah.
Like those are, well, they looked to me like uncomfortable things. From the outside of
Mhm.
that particular relationship, that looked uncomfortable. But I mean, you took several years to sort of move through that relationship
Right.
and start reckoning with like,
Yep.
oh, we're very different people and we don't use the skills.
Right.
We're not actively using them. And you weren't rushing anything. You weren't opening too fast, and also you'd already done over a decade of open before that period of time.
Right.
But what I feel like I was watching, tell me if this rings true, was
Mhm.
that it wasn't that the pace was too fast, it was that the idea was relationships don't have to be this much work. So
Yes.
you were getting to sort of rest in a time where things worked just well enough and were not disruptive enough that you could coast.
Coasting was so you and I have a relationship purpose, and it is growth over comfort. That relationship was about comfort. It was about coasting.
Which
So,
is a
and that
completely
is
reasonable
there is
choice.
I
You
don't
get to
judge
make
that.
that
It's what we
choice.
decided to do, except that no, not accept that. That is true. And as I started to differentiate, as I started to individuate and understand myself and how I was different, I discovered that, oh no, I like growth. I will experience discomfort
Mm.
so that I can grow. I would rather do that than coast. And if I had known about the MVA concept back
The
then,
minimum
the
viable
minimum viable
agreements.
agreement, and how it can be used as an experimental test bed for, hey, what if this was part of our relationship? It doesn't have to be about opening at all. It can just be about, hey, maybe I tell you what, for the next 2 weeks, instead of coming directly home from work, I'm going to stop and do some transition activity. Um, it could be anything from going to a bar to going for a walk in the woods to going swimming,
But something
and
that's
then
all
I'll
for
come
you.
home. But it's just for me, and then I come home. Let's do that for a couple weeks and see how it goes, and see what happens, and then we'll revisit. Like I would have learned so much.
So a level of intentionality. What I'm
Intentionality,
hearing is,
yeah.
and this happens a lot. I see people come in the in the opening process, we focus so much on, am I dating other people? Am I having sex with other
Right.
people? Like what are the feelings involved and what are the body parts involved? And forget to really be with like, how is your differentiation? And how are your agreement making skills? And so when people say we open too fast, I mean, often what they're talking about is they crossed a threshold that feels like they can't cross backward over,
Hmm.
and they may be right. And also they haven't actually explored just a certain level of agency
Self
for
discovery
for a
about,
long
yeah.
time.
Hmm.
And so what you're suggesting is if you had known about like making small experimental agreements, you might have trialed some stuff that let you find out that you wanted something else or that you needed more space. What might you have found out?
Um, so looking back at all of that, I think that I would have found out that I wanted um, more engagement in me,
Your inner
my
world.
inner world. I wanted someone who would um, engage with me in there and get into my goofy internal stories about what was going on, and I think I would have found that I wanted someone who drew me out.
Well, that's interesting because my experience of you was that you did experiment with differentiation in some in like some just
Yeah, I did.
activity based
Yep,
ways.
I did.
But it wasn't until they involved another person that it became disruptive enough for your relationship structure to change. Right? Like
Yeah,
your
that's
relationship
interesting.
had a
Yeah, you're
lot of
right.
space for
Mhm.
differentiation as long as it didn't disrupt the status quo of romance per se.
Yes.
So this gets us into an interesting area. Like what are the desires of opening? Like what are people's motivations? If I'm in an established couplehood and my motivation is different from yours, it can feel like things are breaking when we just notice like, oh, you want to date because you want someone to excavate you and you want somebody to dig around and talk about philosophy and how you feel inside and all that stuff. And I want to date because I want to fuck. Whose way is right?
Oh, yeah, there's no right
Well, there is
there.
right, except
But does it
it often
mm,
feels like the way, and because now we're back to talking about expectations.
oh, yeah,
How did
and
I think this was going to go? And as a projection device, like I'm a human, so I'm projecting my inner experience onto you.
mhm.
So if we're struggling, we don't really know all the possibilities of what opening could look like, and we're not well differentiated already, and we haven't had enough experiences watching other people do this, and it's perfectly reasonable for my psychology to project onto you what I think opening will be like,
So
and to
when
also not be able to articulate that really.
yeah.
Just now I've built implicit expectation.
And so when I don't meet that by saying, "Oh, yeah, this is what I'm looking for," and you're like, "Uh, what? No, that's not what we're doing."
Right.
Yeah, no, but it's what you're doing and it's what I'm doing, and they're different, but
And
that foiled
asymmetry
expectation again.
is the
Whoa.
norm.
Mhm.
Like if we're going to be two humans in a relationship, in order for there to be a relationship, there has to be I and thou. There
Yeah,
has to be a sense that we are not enmeshed to a degree that there's only one unit. And because otherwise it's not a relationship, it's a
yeah.
unit.
Mhm.
And but for me to experience you that way, to experience you as someone who would want things that are foreign to me, that are totally like outside of my realm of imagination, even, it's jarring. It's jarring. And even now, all these years in, like I had none 18 years of practicing this, and still I find it jarring when we confront, oh, my imagination of how this would go and yours were just wildly different.
Yes, it is, it's jarring, that's a good word for it.
So,
It's like missing a
originally,
step on the stairs.
yeah, I was originally thinking about this episode and thinking about all the nervous system work that can be done because when somebody says we've opened too fast, of course we're dealing with dysregulation in the system, and so there's all kinds of work we can do to build our window of capacity, to build to open it, to widen the window of capacity, because I want to be able to experience disruption and be able to come back into connection with you. So we'll put links to all of the neurosomatic intelligence episodes,
Yep.
and there's a great playlist about the basics of NSI. And that might be the practical step that's needed right now. Like, oop, we jumped out of the airplane, we didn't know what we were doing, and there's just so much dysregulation in the room that regular life can't even seem to happen. It's just pain and hurting, and it's a lot. But then there's but then there's still a lot of space for figuring out, so what's next?
Yeah,
So
okay, so
what do
let's
we
say we
do?
get a handle on our nervous systems, and it doesn't hurt all the time, and we're getting some
I don't know whether we're gonna get a handle on it, babe.
well, okay.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
what's the
maybe
right way to
get more
say that?
tools in our toolkit
Yeah.
and and
That is
grasp
a massive overstatement on what is available for
and
nervous
just like
system
grasp the
regulation.
fact that in fact I can experience dysregulation and bring myself back down
Get
into my
yourself
window of
into the window
choice.
of choice
And
more
right.
frequently, and now you have the capacity to start doing, well,
So
what's
in other words,
next?
stabilize a little bit.
Yeah.
But if I stabilize and only by just returning to, okay, well, never going to do that again, I might I
Mm,
might miss out on the
yeah.
opportunity to like, well, what did we just learn?
Yeah.
Can we take an honest inventory of what each of us individually has learned, and also could we reapproach this with more pacing, with more education, which is, by the way, I mean, that's what was missing for me,
Hmm.
education. I didn't know, I didn't even know what I didn't know. So of course I screwed it all up.
Yep.
And I didn't know the language to search to even find the answers. And even when I started to articulate it, like when I started to articulate my desire for more than one romantic, intimate partner, even my therapist was like, well, we don't do
Yeah.
that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So
And you
there
were
were
a
so
step
many rooms
ahead of
not to
me
have it.
because you were looking for resources to learn from. I hadn't even gotten to the point of understanding that there was stuff to learn. It's like, oh, I thought you just were in relationship and it just worked the way it worked. But it turns out there are a lot of resources. And I mean, that's just me.
No, no, it's not.
That's
I
the
had a
way I was.
conversation like that just today where, I was meeting with somebody who had a great story of like they've been doing things like thoughtfully and trying out different ways of being open, but their partner not interested in thinking of this as a learning process,
Mhm.
because they just wanted to be spontaneous in
Yeah.
relationship. And I get that spontaneity is sexy and pleasurable in many ways, but there's there's nothing
It
there's
is one
nothing
strategy
natural
among
about
many. Yeah.
sex or relationship. It's a human process. That would be like saying like, I mean, everything I do, I learn to do and I learn to do better and better. Like I mean, I can just run, but I also, when I wanted to run a marathon, I learned a whole bunch of things in order to make my running more efficient, in order to make sure I remained as low injury as possible. I learned things about strengthening my body in ways that seemed unrelated to running a marathon, but really did help support the whole system. Like there was so much of that activity of running
Which
that was really
again,
in the learning process.
and that brings us back to the idea of questions you didn't think to ask. So by
Right.
reaching out to these other resources, there were people who had already run across the need to ask these questions, ask them and answered them. And so then you're like, oh, okay, there's this whole other thing that I never would have thought was related to relationships like nervous system regulation, or intentional agreements, that all of a sudden, oh, I can see the value because I see other people using it and how it's helping them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I learned, and I had to learn so much of it on the fly, like trying to live inside of a pretty messy triad. And then also, yeah, I wish it had been simpler. I wish I could have learned it in a more strategically
Hmm.
laid out way, but
Yeah.
that wasn't available at the time. So instead, what I was doing was reaching for books on like psychological development and on relationships, but in the monogamous context, and then trying to apply those tools in a way and translate them into this new configuration. So, like a lot of my decision making and agreement making skill building came out of business training. And then had to be translated
Yeah.
7 steps over because it didn't really work, but it had its foundations there. And I mean, I'm really grateful now. I have amazing colleagues in the field that like there's so many great books and podcasts and teachers and therapists that are doing this work. So one of the things to do when we find ourselves feeling like this all went too fast is ask, well, how did we set ourselves up for success? And frequently what I hear from people is like when I give them an assessment of like, so how are you doing in these areas, these the 5 pillars, and in my 4 core areas where I'm looking for skill development. Like, oh, we didn't set up for success in any way. Not at all. We jumped and we trusted the fact that we wanted this enough and that we were good enough at what we already had
Yep.
to make the next thing work. And there's something really sweet and beautiful about that, but also maybe it's reasonable that it all got messed up. Maybe it's reasonable that it's disruptive and hard. Maybe that's not actually the problem. Maybe the problem was that we didn't learn, and I know this was a huge learning step for me, to stretch our imagination first
Oh, yeah.
and to get
Yes.
into the space where I start really working the muscle of my imagination, really starting to explore, what could this mean? What would it be like to have my partner be with someone else in this way, in that way? Can I contemplate that within myself? Can I imagine, can I use my imagination to actually enter into that world for myself, considering you, considering myself, and then can we talk about it? Can we
Yeah.
bring the imaginal third into the room with us?
Yeah. And for me, the through line of all of this is that intentionality of, oh, okay, which goes directly to the imagination. What would this be? What would this look like? Yeah, bring that imaginal third into the room. How would we do that? How would we navigate, and what, imagine what it would feel like, not just what it would be like logistically,
Yep.
but what would it feel like? And
And not just imagine that from a negative place, right? We want to
oh,
imagine it
yeah, no.
in fun ways
Yep.
as well.
Imagine that there was a third person here who had warm feelings for both of us and wanted good things, and we wanted good things for them. And imagine what that would be like. And where would
Okay.
it go wrong? And where
Now
would it go right?
imagine that there's a third person in the room who has warm feelings for one of us and not the other,
Hmm.
who maybe even doesn't even like the other one of us. How would that go? What might that feel like? This is imaginal work is really profound. Like we can really dig into a lot of our internal world by doing imaginal work, but I find nobody talks about it. We're not we've I think we're forgetting that we have this whole skill set where in the imaginal realm we can both troubleshoot and like prepare for
Hmm.
possible challenges, but also yeah, wander into possibility.
Yep.
Um and we have to, I think, really open ourselves up to the potential that we're in that imaginal work with a current partner. I'm probably going to expose myself in ways that I've never
Yeah.
exposed myself.
Right.
Like you're going to know things about me
Hmm.
that were those were inside thoughts,
Yep.
right? That's the real magic, the alchemical experience of, yeah, I'm going to share this with you. And so when I'm doing imaginal work with an established couple, you know, often it's shocking to them just how real it can feel,
Yeah.
which, of course brings up the idea that, imaginal is not imaginary as in fake.
Right.
It's real, it's happening. Like as soon as I imagine it, well, it's it's in the room with us. There's a presence, there's an evanescence, there's something here, and that work becomes so helpful to start understanding what jealousy might feel like for me when it starts being embodied, or what it might feel like for me to negotiate around, like, whoo, like that made a whole feeling in me, and we're just in the imaginal realm right now. Wow, maybe agreements are something I would actually need. Maybe we do need to start having these conversations. So work with the imaginal third. I mean, there's a lot here, right? We can do work on our own, completely independent from
Right.
each other. We can do work together. that is at core. It's a depth psychological process that I think of as like it opens us up to immense potential, but without taking the steps into involving another person's psyche
Yeah.
yet,
Yep.
right? Because as you said, like that, like once they're there, well, we need to tend that. We can't just like people aren't they aren't there for us to pick up and put down and use like objects. And I have heard this show up numerous times. I think we should talk about this before we wrap the episode. I've had people show up and just baldly say in a session with me like, no, 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 look, she has nothing to worry about. I don't even see other women as people. Like they're just what?
Yikes.
Yeah, like hang on, we got to pause everything right now. The other people we're talking about, they're people.
They're
They're
people.
humans. They're not objects. And to like if you were trying to say that as a way to protect an established partner, I need you to stop and think about the very real implications that that has on who you are. Are you okay with being someone else's object? Are you okay with your partner being someone else's object? Like we really need to have this conversation because the number of times I've needed to like call time out in an early call with someone and say, "Whoa, wait a second. We've entered the dehumanization realm. What is going on right now?"
Yeah, it's like it's couples privilege on steroids.
It's really intense.
Yeah.
And I I will hear this sometimes from people who are they're so deeply immersed in the monogamous context that they can't imagine that anyone outside of that has any, you know, human rights essentially.
Yeah.
I bring this up because this is another reason I think the imaginal work is so powerful and so important and can provide us the space we need to really say, okay, what would the appropriate pace be for us? Because
Mhm.
if we're still objectifying others in our conversation, we're not ready to bring that into the embodied realm. If we are on fire with jealousy and not able to work with our nervous system to any degree, okay, so it's okay to not be ready to cross a threshold. It's okay to not be
Right.
ready to take
Yeah.
a step. Um, it's also okay to prepare yourself, take a step forward and find out, whoo, that fire burned bright. I did not expect it to be so intense. I thought I'd prepared myself. And that's where we want to have the skills of repair, not just with another person, but with ourselves.
Yeah.
How do I come back into a sense of it's okay, it's safe to try stuff?
Yeah. I had this imagination. I went and tried it and it did not match my imagination. And now, like, not figuring out how to relate to yourself as someone who got that wrong.
Yeah,
Because
or who
you
estimated
who
wrong or
estimated
who
wrong
just didn't
or
get the experience that they thought
yep.
that they were going to
Yeah.
without giving up entirely on the entire premise.
Yeah.
Because the premise here really isn't about opening up for any like for sex or for another
Yeah.
relationship or for some perfect triad or like it's the premise, the underlying premise is my relationship flexible and resilient? Does my relationship to myself
Mhm.
have the kind of awareness to be able to take steps into new areas and recover if things don't go as planned?
Yeah.
So this is really about building my resilience as much as my skill set. And we
And
are going to get banged up along the way
we
to some
are.
degree.
And I sometimes hear people say, so they try something and it doesn't work. And sometimes the response is, I'm just not someone who can do that, which you absolutely get to say about yourself. Um, but it is a moment to say, well, did I try to learn how to do it differently than I do it right now? And do I want to? Because if you're like, well, I can see how maybe I could learn to get better, but I'm not willing to do those things. Great, You just learned something about yourself. And yeah, right now you're not going to be doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
Cool.
I've had quite a few relationships end because people were in their first couple years of exploring
Hmm.
non-monogamy, and sometime during our relationship they realized, "Oh, yeah, I don't want to put my effort in this direction."
Yeah.
And that's been hard for me. I don't love it, but I also really I respect the fact that that is a thing that we do. But I really appreciate what you're saying about, did I try to learn? Did I
Hmm.
go seek out the resources, because we are living in a glorious
Oh,
time
so many
of
resources,
resources for learning about a
books and
plethora
podcasts and people
of
to talk to.
types of relationships, a
Yeah.
lot of ways that we could relate. And that, I mean, if I could go back and gift myself something way back when, it would be the opportunity to really be in an educational community where we're
Oh,
really with people who are
yeah.
going through the process. I mean, it's what we do in the year of opening. Um, and we're not the only place where people are gathering together and stretching into, well, I don't know how to do this yet.
Yet.
And that doesn't mean I won't ever.
Hmm.
And
And
that's
not
what I wish
having
I'd
to rely
had.
only on my imagination, but I watch other people doing things that I just hadn't thought of. And it's like, oh, that
Yeah.
might work for me.
Yeah.
But I never would have thought that on my own.
Yeah.
Those are really valuable experiences to have.
There's a difference between going out on a limb, in good faith. You go out, you try, and finding out, wow, maybe that works for me, it doesn't work for me, and deciding to just, I'm going to do this, and if it doesn't go perfectly, I'm not cut out for it, or it's
Yep.
too hard, it's inherently too hard. Monogamy's hard too.
Yeah. It
Relating
sure is.
is hard. Like, or we could frame all of this as easy. It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
It's it's effort to learn to do things differently.
Yeah.
It's also it's wildly empowering to realize that with education, with mentorship, with people around us, a community of people with new paradigms, like, there are opportunities to unlearn what we have always taken to be the the
The
obvious
truth,
assumptive truth,
yep.
right? And to try something fresh.
And to learn new skills, actual techniques to apply to relationship, because that was a game changer for me. I thought, again, like I said before, I thought I just had to do it, just be there. And it turns out I could
Which
learn
meant,
how to do an
like,
apology.
you were terrified of rupture for
Oh
years at the
yeah,
beginning of our
because
relationship.
I had
Every
no idea
rupture,
what to do.
right?
Oh, it turns like
And
there's just skills you practice and get good at.
yeah, and you're very good at it now,
Which
and
is like that part of me, that terrified part that's still in there is like, "Really?
yeah,
That's
you are
we're
though.
good at that?"
And there are so many of these skills that also, like, if you decide to learn about them, like, they all apply in all relationships.
Yeah. Yep.
All the non-monogamy skills apply in monogamy.
Yeah.
Monogamy skills do not all transfer to non-monogamy. That is, sorry, but that is just true.
Yep.
We're gonna be we can add a lot to your toolkit, though, that it's
Yeah.
mm, it will work no matter where you choose to go from here. And if you do decide to shift back to a closed container of monogamy, one of the skills I would hope everybody takes is, wow, we better be clear about what the heck that even is.
Right.
Where are the edges?
Yep.
Because if you didn't understand the edges of your non monogamy, well, you probably didn't understand the actual edges of your monogamy either. So, whatever you learn along the way and wherever you want to go afterwards, you have the opportunity to apply. Like, great, we can't go backwards, we can go forwards into, well, what do we have now? And even if that means the ending of a relationship, as it has for both of us in the past, and I've lost other relationships since where people have been like, yep, turns out monogamy for me,
Yeah.
that's, there's something to celebrate there too. Like, I feel genuinely celebratory about, like, wow, you learned
The
something
learning.
about yourself.
Mhm.
And also now we are all empowered to find configurations that work for us. Um, it's a huge relief. So
It
talk
is.
about nervous system relaxation.
Yes, the relief of increased self-knowledge. Oh, yeah, okay. So that's where I am on this.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, this was a messy conversation, and I think I knew at the outset that it would get a little messy.
Mhm.
I love a good, like, well bulleted
Sure.
convo, but this one, um, it really is about staying present to we're all gonna make mistakes. We're
Yep.
all going to jump out of some airplanes too fast,
Yep,
cross
and
some
some of it will
thresholds
go
too
too
fast,
fast, and
and some might go too slow.
some might
And
go
we
too
could do a
slow.
whole other episode on going quote unquote too
Oh, we
slow.
sure could.
But if everybody just took away the idea that, like, learning resilience is possible,
Yeah.
and moving forward from a place of intentional choice, like, that alone, to me, that's a win,
Yep.
regardless of where the relationships, how close they wound up to where I expected them to
Right.
be.
Yeah.
So if people are wondering about, like, what do I do now? We have an educational community where we're talking about this all the time. The Year of Opening is designed specifically for that. The Year of Opening is both a container of learning, a year-long container, but it is also an ongoing community where people come in, join us for the Year of Learning, and then stay with us for as long as we're
And
here and
keep
kicking and
sharing
doing this.
experiences with each other.
Because
Mhm.
having community where we're talking about this,
Yep.
like, this is a normal conversation for us to have inside of the Year of Opening. That's what I wish I'd had back when I
Oh,
opened way too
that would
fast.
have changed everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
18 years ago, I made a decision that changed the shape of my life. If I could go back and tell myself one thing, it would be find other people who are questioning the mononorms. Find other people who are doing that, who are willing to be with you in that space of wondering and learning and trying to figure it out, and allow yourself to make mistakes in community.
It's a game changer.
It is. That's why we created Year of Opening. And inside of the Year of Opening, you get mentorship, you get a full curriculum live taught to you, and you also get surrounded by community that lasts far beyond your original year of opening. You also get time to take things
Mhm.
from the theoretical into the practical at whatever pace feels right for you, no matter how many years that takes. This is our life's work. We're not going anywhere. The Year of Opening is about getting in and discovering what you need to know to do this well, but also about creating a community that will last for your whole relational journey. So check us out at yearofopening.com. That's where you can schedule a call to talk with me, because that is the only way in. I curate our groups to make sure that they are the safest possible environments to stretch, to grow, to support each other's individuation, and to become the kind of relators that we really want to be.